Hey, this is Ken Shamrock, UFC Hall of Famer and also Impact Hall of Fame. And you're listening to Dane Powell, Simple Man Sports.
You are now locked into another episode of Simple Man Sports. It is your source for drama-free, no-nonsense sports coverage. I'm your host, Dane Powell, and this week I had the chance to sit down with the godfather of MMA, UFC Hall of Famer, Impact Wrestling Hall of Famer, Mr. Ken Shamrock. We had a chance to sit down and talk about his life in combat sports, how he's helped develop the whole thing. And we even had a chance to sit down and talk about what he's got coming up next. And it's something you've got to check out. So let's get into this interview with Ken Shamrock right here on Simple Man Sports. Welcome into another episode of Simple Man Sports. I'm your host, Dane Powell, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with the world's most dangerous man, UFC Hall of Famer, Mr. Ken Shamrock. Ken, I appreciate you joining me today.
Appreciate you having me on, man. Thank you.
Oh, no worries. Pleasure's all mine. So let's hop right into this. You are a legend in the world of combat sports. What does it mean to you to be recognized as a pioneer of the UFC and one of the first people inducted into the Hall of Fame of an industry that's now worth billions of dollars?
Well, I feel like the Godfather. I feel like I was there in the beginning and got to see the growth of it from the very beginnings when it was really raw and bare knuckle. Anything goes, fight 4 times in one night. Got to see, Royce Gracie in his prime and tearing up the league. So got to see that right up close, to see that whole thing transpire, and then to see me develop as a fighter and be able to challenge Royce for that title. So it was really an honor for me to be a part of all of that, and especially since where it's at right now, to be able to look back on that and go, you know what, man, I was part of that. It's a proud moment.
Well, you definitely paved the way for a lot of things in the UFC, but what a lot of people may not know is that you really spearheaded the whole concept of fight teams when you started the Lions Den. How important do you think that concept is in today's competition?
Well, I think that it's always been that way. Since the beginning, when there was combat sports, you got to have somebody to train with. You got to be able to work with people and be able to craft your skills. But to be able to actually showcase, like I did, the team, to be able to look behind the curtain and see the training and see how hard it is to be able to prepare for a fight and see all the people that are helping you, and then to be able to see the diet and the nutrition and all that stuff that the team was putting together, and then see an actual program built after it, which was the Ultimate Fighter. To see something like that literally be somewhat modeled after it, even though it's not really the same, but it's the same when it comes to that team preparation. So like I said, it's kind of cool to be able to see that transition, to be able to expose fighting for what it is. And it is a team sport, even though it's an individual when the bell rings, but it takes a team to get you there.
Yeah, it's definitely a staple of how things operate today. And you spoke about transitions. And speaking of transitions, you were definitely one of the first to make that transition between MMA and pro wrestling. How significant do you think that move was in your career and the career of those who continue to adopt that concept?
Well, I took a challenge. It was risky, because when I made the move, that wasn't a cool thing to do, to go to pro wrestling. Because in most people's eyes, that was in the industry of competing, whether it boxing or MMA or the actual combat industry. That wrestling was, that comic thing. And so when I did it, it was risky, but I made that move because I felt my father was the one that said, "Hey, you should try that." And in my mind, I was like, "Yeah, I don't think I want to do that. I mean, I like watching it, but I don't know if that." But he basically just told me, he goes, "You have a unique opportunity here to be able to take what you do and to bring it into the pro wrestling ring." And I thought about it, and I was like, I watched wrestling, obviously, and I was like, dude, I can do these moves. Like I can do these moves. I counter a lot of the stuff that the wrestlers are doing. So I made the move, and also I knew because my camp was in turmoil because I made that decision, and the decision that I made was to basically keep my camp running because UFC at the time was taking a really bad hit. The money wasn't coming in; they were going to court all the time, and they were struggling. And so I had to make a move because they weren't able to pay me what I needed, and so I had to make a move into something that would one try to at least keep me and my team and my way of living intact, and still further the world of MMA. And so I felt like wrestling was a great opportunity me to go in there and wake up the mainstream because it was just a small cult type of following with the UFC at that time. And so I felt like I saw an opportunity to bring it mainstream with what I do. People will find out who I was and then trace my history back to UFC and Pancrase and be able to see that it all started from wrestling, and my journey from wrestling into where I'm at right now, back into wrestling. And thankfully, it worked out because my moves and the things that I did, which I thought I could do, worked tremendously with wrestling. And in fact, if you look at today, wrestling is better for having submissions in their sets now. So I changed wrestling, no question. When I came in and brought all those moves into wrestling, I also opened the door for people like Ronda Rousey, Brock Lesnar, and a few others, and even vice versa the other way, having people want to try MMA. So, yeah, I feel like I knocked the doors down. I took away all the risks that people needed to take to be able to make that jump, and so it made it an easier road for people. In fact, I think if you look at it, I think that's where most people are really looking after they get to a point they've done everything they can in fighting. They look at pro wrestling.
We're speaking with UFC Hall of Famer Ken Shamrock. Now, one relationship that you had in pro wrestling really stands out, from Intercontinental to King of the Ring, the iconic ankle lock photo, and recently with your induction into the Impact Hall of Fame. So how has your relationship with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson impacted your personal and professional life?
Yeah, The Rock was a tremendous individual, full of personality, and one of the great guys to be around. He was a tremendous character in the ring, but he was a tremendous guy outside the ring. And so I was very honored to be able to have built that relationship and be able to have learned together, building our careers. Obviously, we went in different directions, but I believe we both sharpened each other up to be able to do the things we are doing today. And so it was one of those things where I look back on my life that I think being able to have that relationship with him and spend that time with him made me a better person.
Well, speaking of iron sharpening iron, I know that you recently spent some time down at Fort Polk, Louisiana, with our soldiers. Um, what kind of work is it that you do with the men and women of our armed forces?
Well, let's face it, when it comes to the stuff we do, it's entertainment. you know, we're we're in no position to make these guys dangerous or better than what the military is already making them. All we're doing is adding another source of entertainment and opportunity to get in better shape, to further their abilities to be able to defend themselves and more personally, I think, just to feel better about themselves. So that's kind of what I do when I go there is we challenge them in workouts with squats and pull-ups, push-ups, all that other stuff. And, I felt like that earlier on when we were teaching moves and stuff like that. I mean, that's all fun and stuff, but that's not going to stick with them. I think the thing that's going to stick with them more is about learning how their bodies work and how far they can push their bodies. The military already does that. And so for me to be able to go in there and just add a different element to them pushing their bodies, I think is more beneficial. And I'm honored to be able to be a part of that and for them to allow me to be able to do that.
Well, Ken, I really appreciate, and I know that our service members appreciate the things that you do outside of the ring. But before we wrap up here, I'd like you to take a minute, tell everyone what you've got going on and where we can find you on social media or otherwise.
Yeah, you can go to my website, kenshamrock.com. It has all my social media platforms. You can find out all the stuff that we're doing. We got a lot of really interesting stuff that we're traveling around and that we're doing. And of course, we have that all on my social media platforms, kenshamrock.com. Also, too, we're, I would say, probably weeks away from launching again our second event, Valor BK, which is a bare knuckle organization. What we're doing is basically taking the gloves off of boxers, and we're saying, let's box without gloves. And I know most people cringe when they hear that, but if you follow us and you start paying attention to what we're doing, I think we're going to be able to educate a lot of people. And if you want to know when our next events are coming up, you can follow us on valorbk.com and find out our next event. And we're getting ready. We're very close to announcing our next venue.
Outstanding. We'll be sure to provide you that link in this episode. Ken, I want to thank you again for taking some time to come talk with me today.
Hey, appreciate you having me on, man, and look forward to everybody checking it out, valorbk.com. It is the biggest, next big new thing.
We'll have it for you in this episode. Everybody, that is UFC Hall of Famer Ken Shamrock. Welcome back. What an outstanding interview. Big thank you to Ken Shamrock for taking some time to talk with me today. Make sure that you guys check out Valor BK. I'm telling you, I'll put the link in the video. It is a bunch of savages, toe-to-toe, bare knuckle in the pit, man. It is outstanding stuff, and you've got to see it. Valor BK, make sure that you check it out. As for Simple Man Sports, you know that you can find everything you need on simplemansports.com. You can also find me on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and YouTube. Make sure that you go ahead and like and click that little subscribe button, and you can get all the content you're looking for. I'm Dane Powell, reminding you to check on a veteran, and y'all stay simple.